All right, let's dive in. Today, we're going to demystify two of the most powerful and maybe most confusing features in Next.js, route handlers and server actions. We're going to break down what they are, what they do, and the big one, figure out exactly when you should reach for each one.
But first, let's start with a kind of wild question. What if your front end could just be your back end? I mean, what if you didn't need a separate server, a whole different code base, or even another team just to build out your API? That's the huge idea we're exploring today. You know, traditionally we had the old way. You'd have your front-end code base over here, talking across the network to a completely separate back-end server over there. But the new way, the one that frameworks like Next.js are pushing, just unifies them. Your UI code and your API logic can actually live side by side, which simplifies, well, pretty much everything.
So how in the world does Next.js actually make this happen? Well, the main tool in the toolbox for building that integrated backend is a fantastic feature called route handlers.
So what is a route handler? It's really just a function that lets you create a backend API endpoint. And the real magic here is how simple it is. All you do is add a file. You name it route.ts, you put it inside your app directory, and that's it. You're done. No complex service setup, no special registration files, just a file.
Now this is where it really clicks. Look at how direct this mapping is. The path to your file is the API URL. So if you go and create a file at app/api/posts/route.ts, congratulations, you have just created the API/posts endpoint. It's basically file system routing, but for your backend. So cool.
Okay, so you've made an endpoint in like 5 seconds. What can you actually do with it? Let's take a look at the toolkit you get for handling requests and crafting your own responses.
A route handler gives you full access to any incoming request. You can easily pull out query parameters from the URL, you can read a JSON body from a post request, you can handle good old-fashioned form data, or you can dig into any of the headers. It's built to handle literally any kind of data you can throw at it. And on the flip side, you have total control over the response you send back. You can send JSON, obviously, but you can also set custom headers, manage cookies for things like auth, and even stream data back, which is perfect for things like those AI chat responses. And here's the best part. These are all standard web APIs, so the skills you learn here, they're useful way beyond just Next.js.
Okay, this all brings us to the central question, right? The big architectural decision that every Next.js dev has to make when they're building out a new feature.
When do I use a route handler, and when should I be using its newer, flashier sibling, the server action? This is, without a doubt, one of the most common points of confusion out there, but you know what? The answer is actually pretty simple once you see it.
So let's break it down. You use a route handler when something external needs to call your application. Think about a Stripe webhook that needs to send you a payment confirmation, or maybe a mobile app that needs to fetch some data. Those things need a stable public URL to hit. Server actions, on the other hand, are for internal stuff, mutations that are triggered by your own UI, like a user, right there in your app submitting a form. So here it is. This is the golden rule you need to remember. Server actions are for your own app's mutations. Route handlers are for everything else that needs a public HTTP URL. That's it. That simple idea right there clarifies pretty much every situation you'll run into.
Now, this isn't just theory. Let's see how this idea actually builds out into a real, honest-to-goodness, production-ready API.
Just look at this file structure for a second. An entire, perfectly organized CRUD API for blog posts that's creating, reading, updating, and deleting is handled by just 2 files. You have one file that handles listing all the posts and creating new ones, and the second one handles all the operations for one specific post. I mean, how clean is that? And don't think for a second this is some flimsy toy API. This setup supports the full CRUD shebang, advanced features like pagination and search, really robust input validation with Zod to keep your data safe, and consistent JSON responses. This right here proves that route handlers are more than powerful enough for serious, real-world apps.
Okay, so as we start to wrap up, let's just lock in the single most important lesson from this entire explainer. Let's just say it one more time, just to make sure it sticks. If something external to your application needs to call a function, a webhook, a third-party service, a different app, it needs a URL. You have to use a route handler. If your own user interface is triggering a change to your data, you should use a server action.
And why does this distinction matter so much? Well, because getting it right leads to a way simpler code base and much faster development. Plus, remember how route handlers are built on standard web APIs? That means the skills you're building are directly transferable to this whole new ecosystem of modern serverless platforms. So we end right back where we started. Your framework, right now, can build the entire stack, from that pixel-perfect button on the front end all the way to the tough, reliable API on the back end. The only question left is, what are you going to create?